A big hello to all the peer listeners. This is Bashir with one more episode of the podcast series Peer Talk Hiring Infosec Professionals in 2020. Today, my guest is Jothi Dugar. Jothi Dugar is a multi talented, multi-dimensional executive, chief information security officer, and entrepreneur, dance director, holistic health and wellness practitioner, author, international public speaker, and a happily married mom of three. Well, I suppose it's better if you introduce yourself. Can you please, Jyoti? This talent list is a little bit too much for me to absorb.
Sure. Thank you, Bashir, for that wonderful introduction. Yep, I'm happy to be here today. And yes, I would. I always like to look at life and health, wellness, and my career in a holistic, using a holistic approach. So I always love to give back to people, but also, not look at chaos as in terms of fear. Just use all the chaos in our life to guide us in the right direction and use it for our own growth. So I try to do that in multiple different ways, in the holistic wellness practice and even in dance, using dance as a form of expression,
Yeah.
and using mind, body, and energy techniques in pretty much everything I do.
Right. Wow, that's wonderful. Jyoti, now let us come to the actual topic. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced a majority of workforce to work from home, and we certainly did not foresee it. How does it affect hiring in general, Jyoti?
Sure. So, I think we're all trying to do the best we can in the time that we're in, but it's also teaching us how to expand ourselves, and even from an organizational standpoint, we're doing things that we never thought was possible before. So, a lot of what I teach in the theory really apply in this type of situation. We never thought that the entire world can be virtual, and be teleworking.
Yeah,
And if there was any sort of trust factor in organizations or our leaders and the employees, this is a good way to test that theory. Can you trust your employees to work? Can you trust your leadership to support you? And when it comes to hiring, it's this is a new way of doing things. Just being able to do virtual video interviews, and you could still, I think they're still successful. We've done plenty in our organization as well, just interviewing people on WebEx or Zoom. I've found that it sometimes it may lack a little bit of that emotional IQ sense, because when you meet someone face to face, you could read their energy, you can feel the
right.
energy that they bring into the room, and sometimes it doesn't come across, through technology that exactly the same way. But you can still be successful at least reading eye language, body language, the way they speak, and how they answer the question. At least if you're able to do video interviews. If you're not able to do video interviews and it's only by phone, I think it's not as beneficial or effective, I found. But if you're able to do video, then that's just almost equally as good as a face-to-face interview. So I don't see that being a huge issue, but the only part of it is if you work for the federal government, or if you do any sort of you deal with any sort of sensitive data or sensitive systems and you need a clearance, then maybe that process takes a little bit longer now with everything that's going on. So even
Yeah.
after you've interviewed and selected a candidate, it might take them much longer than usual to actually join their new job. So sometimes
Right.
that can be off-putting for people if they have to wait a really long time. Then they might start looking for other opportunities. So I think that's where the catch 22 is sometimes.
Right. And Hiring a good cybersecurity professional is already a tough ask, right? Will this COVID-19 chaos make it much more tougher?
So again, I'm going to go back to what I believe in. A lot of times until now, we've been looking for cyber professionals and leaders that come with a predominant technical skill set. And what I've been finding over the years is that just having a technical skill set in cyber is just not good enough anymore.
Right, right,
So I've been saying this for years now. Like we really need to look for good quality cyber professionals that have, good communication skills, good leadership skills, good business knowledge, relationship building skills, and it was already hard to find that, as you say, and but now I think this pandemic or the situation is just causing us to realize that these are the things that we should have been looking for all along, and now it's just forcing us to look for these things even more so, because you really don't want to get in some cyber professionals in your organization, especially during this kind of time, that only come with technical skills. We really need people that can build those, are able to build relationships in a virtual type of setting, and they're good communicators, they're able to communicate well through technology,
right.
not just through emails, but maybe use a variety of different communication modes and mechanisms, because we're not able to go and just walk over to somebody's office and knock on their door. But they should come in with the tendency or the skill set of being open to reaching out to others, and using a variety of different ways, like phone or Skype or Zoom, whatever it may take. So just kind of like an overall well-rounded cyber professional, I think, is even more crucial now than it ever was before.
Yeah. And how to attract more women into cybersecurity? Could you share any personal recommendations?
Sure. So this is a great topic. It's one that I am personally really passionate about. Especially with my own experiences being one of the few minority
Yeah,
women in cyber, and just being one of the few women in cyber leadership positions globally, has taught me a lot in what I can do to help others and to coach other women and also other girls.
yeah,
So what I found was that it's too late in the game if we're only looking at professional women that are already in the professional space. That is an area we should look at, but we really have to start way younger than that, even at the grade school level. Encouraging girls to take risks in life, encouraging them to go into the STEM fields, and look at cyber as an opportunity for them to grow and not be afraid and not let their fears hold them back. So I do a lot of mentoring and coaching for girls, for schools, as well as organizations, and especially for women empowerment coaching. And what I found was that, a lot of times what holds women back is the fear of failure is the number one cause. And the number two cause is just not having someone to look up to, like a mentor or role model. Because
right.
as as women, we need to see other women doing what we want to do to inspire us.
Right.
And when we don't see that, then we start to tend to go down this downward spiral. We start looking, feeling the imposter syndrome. We start, letting fear lead the way. So what I found was, when we started at grade school level, going to schools, just giving talks at schools, coaching young girls and even young boys, it applies to both, because boys have to be trained at a very young age how to treat the
Yeah,
girls in their life and the women in their life, so they grow up, having good practices. And then for girls, they have to know how to advocate for themselves, lead their own lives, not purely rely upon external sources like their family or social circles or friends or teachers to yes, they play a factor in guiding them, but they should also learn to accept themselves, not be ashamed or feel guilty, or even look at fear a little differently. So when I saw things happen in certain schools where girls would start out in STEM programs and then little by little they'll start dropping off, and I started looking at why is that the case. I saw a lot of rivalry between girls, like other girls that weren't in STEM would just start shaming girls that are in STEM, or questioning why they're doing that when they can do something else. I also saw teachers and families that were, didn't really support the girls. They'd like, okay, you know what, you failed at this one, so this is just not for you, just try something else. Instead of encouraging them to just pick themselves up and just keep trying, and allowing them to advocate for themselves. So everything kind of starts from way back when you're a child. But let's just say for women, they're already, maybe if they're already a professional, so we can't go back to fix things when they're a child. And for women in the workplace, I would encourage them to speak up for themselves. Maybe if they're
Right.
not in cyber already, but it's just something that they're curious about, like maybe reach out to their CISO or their CIO or their management and just kind of express interest. Like, hey, I'd like to try this out. Are there any classes I can take, or maybe I can even do shoulder surfing or cross training, and maybe or even volunteer my time on the cyber team to kind of just learn about it,
Right.
and not be afraid of speaking up and asking for what they want, because if they don't ask for what they want, then they can't really get what they want. So the first step is to ask and then look for different types of opportunities.
Yeah, it's great to hear that someone like you is trying to mentor girls and boys into cybersecurity. And what kind of cyber security skill sets organizations would be looking for in 2020?
Sure. So I would strongly recommend organizations look for a well-rounded person, whether it's a cybersecurity leader or a CISO type of role, or even an entry-level position. Because, as I said before, cyber is growing by the day, and the skill sets need to grow with it. And
Right.
oftentimes, just having a technical skill set, it's just not going to cut it anymore. So we've been kind of forgetting about a whole nother side, and people call it the soft skills. I actually call it this is the real life skills. You know, with technical skills, you can only get so far. Yes, you might be able to really hone in on that vulnerability and do some analysis and figure out, where it's coming from. But in order to communicate the risk of that vulnerability being exploited to, let's say, executive management, all your life skills come into place. Are you able to speak in a language that the another person is able to really understand and
Right.
have it resonate with them?
Yeah.
um, a lot of us cyber leaders have to ask for funding all the time or additional resources. You can't just go to a CFO or a director of a large organization and just say, "Oh, I need more money for cyber." Like that's just never going to fly. So
That's the issue with most of the cybersecurity professionals. They
yeah,
are not
yeah.
able to, yeah,
Exactly. So you have to put things in a way that resonates for the other person, be able to tell the story. My mom always told me when I was a kid that I tell too many stories, and now I'm like, hey, you know what? It's actually paying out for my benefit.
yeah,
Because if you're not able to tell a story and paint the picture for someone, then you're just not going to be successful in what you're
right.
asking for. And I think cyber is one of the very unique roles where you not only have to tell stories and get buy-in from people above you, you also have to get buy-in and, and be able to tell that story to people below you and all around you as well. So you're kind of like this central point in this
Yes.
organization, in an organization, and you have to be, you have to keep that wheel moving, and keep it like well greased up, and be able to communicate to all kinds of people, all around you. It's not just trying to make a point to upper management like most roles.
Right. And how important is a degree or a certificate? Do they play a huge role in selecting a good cybersecurity professional?
So that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
For me, what I believe in is, you know, a degree or a certification just shows that you are very well versed in taking an exam and passing it.
Okay.
um, it doesn't necessarily show me that you're going to be successful in a real life practical environment. And unfortunately, cyber is considered still kind of a new field of study. So, it's only really been around for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And only now are universities and colleges making cyber, some sort of cyber program or degree. And even that's not really, well established. So, and it's also very unique in the sense that there's no right path to get to cyber. Like really anyone can get into cyber, do it, and coming, and they can come from any sort of background, which is great.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't really, that means that there's really no standard to set. So I know the world kind of looks at the CISSP as a standard, but to me it just means that, okay, you're really good in memorizing a whole bunch of material, and you're good in, like, passing a really long exam, and then just kind of
Yeah.
understanding the way that the exam makers made the exam. But then that doesn't mean you're going to be successful in real life or in an organization. So that really just comes with experience and
Right.
learning. So I would give experience and learning a higher, I guess, rating than just someone that has a college degree in cyber or a certification.
Yeah.
But that being said, just a caveat to that is we have such a shortage of skilled a cybersecurity workforce, and when you start looking at that aspect, it's because people are only looking for experienced staff without giving an entry level person an opportunity to get that
Yeah.
experience. So, and I made the mistake of doing that several years ago as well, and I learned a lot from that, and in that, we have to really have a holistic way of looking at our cyber workforce as well. So giving people the opportunity to learn cyber,
Yeah.
bringing in college students, maybe even like having a paid or unpaid internship, giving them that practical experience, or immersion experience, as I like to call it, and also cross training other teams that may already be in your organization, like maybe your help desk staff or your IT staff, or even your administrative staff, because sometimes maybe they just don't want to, they don't want to do what they've been doing for years, but they don't really know what else to do, so then they feel kind of stuck. So you're there, if you're in the cyber department and you're looking for people, and then of others that want to change, that don't really know what to do, though, this is a golden opportunity to create a win-win situation, like, bring them on board for maybe even like a volunteer type of role for a few hours a week. Could just come and learn about cyber, and you can get the experience. You could also see if this is a path that you want to maybe start getting into. And then little by little, as they build their skill set, if they like it, you can start kind of doing half and half. And then at some point they can choose if they just want to completely switch over. So That way, for cyber leaders, they're getting the staff that they need. They have to be willing to take the time to
Yeah.
train them. I've noticed that happen a lot as well, where there's a lot of complaints that, well, there's not enough resources. But then when I'm able to get resources and tell them, like, well, I got your resources, now you have to train them. They're like, oh, we don't have time to train them. Like, well,
Yeah.
then you can't complain.
Right. And how do we retain a good cybersecurity professional?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Um,
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the government, just because you're not able to meet the probably the compensation demands of cyber professionals these days that they could look for in the private sector. Um, so especially in the government, it's very hard to retain cyber staff for a long period of time.
Right.
Um, and it I think there's a lot of government agencies out there that are doing a lot of things for workforce retention and improvement and workforce development. And I truly feel that that's where a lot of things that I've been suggesting, really taking care of your employees. Sometimes money isn't the only factor. In fact, it's almost always not the only factor, unless you're very young and that's what your primary goal is to make money. But usually, once you get to a certain a stage in your life, you're looking for other things as well. You're looking for
Right.
stability, good people to work with, camaraderie, people that you can really share you could be yourself at work. You don't have to put on a mask. And also you want to feel like you're part of an organization that really values you and cares about you. And I don't just mean, I know some people look at that and say, okay, yeah, yeah, we have, workforce development programs and this and that. And if you actually look at how many people actually use those programs, it's probably very minimal. Because you also need supportive and encouraging leadership, business leaders in their organization that encourage their staff to take part in these kinds of programs. So what I started doing is I actually started creating wellness programs and just wellness workshops, and just free of charge for employees that work there, and just encouraging them, like, hey, this is just like 1 hour a week, but then in that 1 hour I can provide some quick ways that you can keep yourself well. So you don't have to come and do this yoga, downward dog, and half the people don't really feel comfortable doing that in front of their coworkers, um,
Yeah.
or you don't have to, go meditate on a mountain, anything like that. So I try to create programs, wellness workshops, and things like, just to, one to, because there's so much stress, especially in the
Yeah.
cyber field, stress, burnout, just people just feeling really lost and the work never ends. So just having these types of programs, and then encouraging staff to attend, and then showing them that these are just fun, easy ways to,
Right.
that are there for them. It's one way to help with retention, but also other ways as well. Just trying to be, if you can't be competitive in the compensation area, then you really have to be more competitive in other areas, like such as workforce development, maybe providing them with the training that they
Right.
need, maybe cross training, maybe giving them other opportunities that they might not get in other places, and then just really valuing them and treating them well, because if they're happy, they're you know
Right.
even if they're not, even if they can get more money somewhere else, but if they know that their organization and their leadership really value them and they're being taken care of, then most likely they may not tend to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And yeah, we know for certain that a lot of cybersecurity professionals are stressed up, right? And we
Yes.
all know that yoga is a great stress buster. And finally, Jyoti, what are your tips and recommendations to a HR person in hiring a good InfoSec professional?
Sure. So, going along, summarizing everything that I've said, a lot of times HR only looks for the word cyber or the word, technology in resumes, and then they kind of just pass it along to management because it's so hard to even find a good cyber professional. But I actually think that's setting people up for failure rather than setting them up for success. So, I still look for the skills that I find to be valuable in cyber, which is communication skills. Are you able to tell me a story during the interview itself? Because if
Yes.
you can't tell me a story, then how are you going to tell the story to other stakeholders that might even be tougher than me?
Yeah.
um, and then just being, just giving them finding things in their resume that really speak to a well-rounded person. Have they done what else have they done? And I actually look for things that they might have done that are artistic or on the creative side, and most people just kind of dismiss as, oh, what does this have to do with cyber? Well, it has a lot to do, because if you're able to use your creative side, which is the opposite side of your brain, and you're able to merge that into the cyber field, that's golden to me. If someone's not, because people are different kinds of learners. So if you're trying to communicate with your CIO or your director on something and they're just not getting it, or they keep denying what you're asking for, you really have to start thinking creatively. Okay, so what am I saying that's not going through? Or maybe I need to paint the picture for them in a different way, or maybe I need to draw it out for them, draw a diagram or something like that. So really looking for like a well-rounded person, not just in the technical skill sets, but also, what other skill sets do they have? Like, do they have a creative skill set? What else do they do outside of work? So we can really start reading a person from using a holistic view, not just what they put on their resume, and also not just from a technical point of view.
Right. We have run out of time. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, Jyoti. And thank you for this wonderful, wonderful discussion. I just hope that I would get the opportunity of hosting you again. Uh,
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful to speak with you, and thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, thank you a lot. Thank you all for listening to these wonderful insights from Jyoti. Hope you all have a safe and secure week ahead. Goodbye till the next episode. Once again, this is Bashir from Peer List.